A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning to you, depending on where you are watching us from. And you are warmly welcome to the Power Impact Series show, proudly brought to you by the African Seasoned Speakers Network, where we bring speakers all over the world to be a source of motivation and serve a kind of interest to most young Africans living around and in Africa. And what we do is that we are a speaker agency and we link speakers to other agencies that needs their services during their programs. So today is going to be a wonderful time for us. It's going to be a wonderful evening. It's going to be a wonderful afternoon. It's going to be a wonderful morning because we are kickstarting our Cybersecurity Awareness Month celebration globally with a wonderful topic that you want to enjoy listening to over and over, which is going to serve you and hopefully other users and people on the internet. My name is Ambassador Benjamin Osuansa, and it's always a pleasure hosting you and then having you here as my cherished audience. So before we go on to introduce to you the speaker that we have for today's episode, we want to just acknowledge Hard Charger for being around with us, sponsoring most of the time the programs that we bring to you, and also the African Seasoned Speakers Network. But before that, we want to just take a first break, and right after that, we are going to introduce to you the speaker for today. So stick around, don't go anywhere, and we'll be back shortly.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.abscessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AbscessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Influencing the next generation of Africans, and that is what we stand for, and that's what we do always. And today is not going to be of a different, because we're going to have in the house somebody that is also going to help us influence and shape our thinking towards things that he's going to tell us about. So before we go on, I want to just let you know or give you a brief about our speaker, and then we roll the speaker into our studios. All right, so the speaker for today, our speaker is a lawyer and a data privacy information security practitioner. Our speaker for today is the founder and lead consultant at Information Security Architects Limited, a Rapid 7 Gold partner. He is a JW Merit Law Scholar, pursuing masters in law, in national security and cyber security at the George Washington University Law School. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are ready, just as I'm ready, to receive our guest for today, our speaker for today, help me, if your hands are not busy, to welcome onto the Power Impact series for the very first time, no other person than our senior brother, our main man, Desmond Israel. I like that smile. You cannot go wrong with that smile. Always. You cannot go wrong with that smile. You just look at that. Just look at the smile that is giving.
Hi, Ben.
Desmond, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing too?
I'm good. It's always a pleasure to see you and always a pleasure to listen to you. And I know today is not going to be of a different because, hey, we are ready for you. We are more than ready for you. We are more than ready for you. So, viewers, let us know where you are connecting us from. Get to the chat area and let's feel the vibe in the house. Let's know where you're connecting us from. And then just give a shout out to our guest for today, because when we zoom in, you should be ready. you should just be ready. So I just want to give you some few minutes for you to settle down before I get zoom in with his wisdom nuggets that he has for us. So before that, I just want to just go back again to that commercial break, and right after that, I guess takes over from there. So don't go anywhere, stick around.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.accessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AccessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Thank you so much for sticking around. And then we are now back to what we have for today. And then we'll go straight to Desmond. Yes, tell us a little bit about yourself. I did the introduction, but hey, since you're here, we would love it to hear from you yourself. A little bit about Desmond and then ISA.
So ISA is it started as a pet project that I was embarking on. And then became a company. So it's 10 years. It's 10 years because we started off in March 2012. The essence was to provide homegrown security solutions because at the time, most of the people on the market were relying on external companies to do security work for them. When I mean security work, I'm speaking specifically about cybersecurity and information security. So we came up onto the market. The idea was to provide, first use local talent to provide security assessments, technical security assessments, specifically penetration testing, and then use external partners to provide other solutions that we're not developing in-house. So we were all just about security. And I used to tell our clients that we don't know anything best than security. So if you try to pull us into other projects like hardware supply and all those things, I was always shying away from that because we wanted a vision to stay security focused. And so that's what we've been doing for the past 10 years. Rapid7, as you mentioned, we are a gold partner to Rapid7. It's a company in the United States. It's one of the finest, companies when it comes to security testing and the solutions that comes along with it. So yes, and we've been able to deliver quite some extensive services in Ghana. We've been privileged to have some footprints outside Ghana as well. We've done some work in Liberia. We've done some work in Nigeria. I was in Sierra Leone probably 2 years before I came to the US for school. And yeah, so I say it's still, thriving. Yeah. So you can check them out, www.isa.com.gh, just in case you wish to do any business with them. More than willing.
Definitely, we will need to do business with ISA. We need to. And knowing where your strengths are, we're not going to stretch you to any other area where you're not working at. So we're going to stretch you on the security spot. And that's where we need to do it. So combining that together and then bringing in, how do you do that? The lawyer and then security expert. How do you combine that?
Okay, so yeah, that's something I like to share a lot. It's a lot of inspiration, personal inspiration as to how I perceived the market. Just a little throwback on myself. I started off along the line as a graphic designer, then I became a web developer. And then I went into systems in terms of computer systems. I did a bit of networking. And all that led me to the interest around computer security. So my first direct computer security experience was in 2004, when I finally started off working with a company in 2005. And build a lot of experience at the time because not a lot of people were doing this. But as I kept going, I kept following the industry, like what is the next big thing. So when hardware was kind of like fading out, quote unquote, for networking guys, I was following. And then I realized that, okay, everybody else is going to come into security because that's the next thing. And then sometime in maybe 2012, 2013, just I think a year or two after ISA, I started off as a company. I got a lot of inspiration from like a family friend. I could call him an uncle, who kept saying, "Hey, you need to, put yourself together, and the way you like to, pleasure around these law thing, you need to put yourself together and get in there." But what was really motivating me was not the fact that I was speaking about the law. I was actually looking out for the opportunity to align the legal issues with the technology stuff, and that's what motivated me to go to law school. So I remember when I was before her ladyship Justice Tokono, then a high court judge. Now she's on the Supreme Court. I remember very well. She asked me from marketing, from technology to marketing to law, what is happening here, and I and I told her that the future is technology and law. I don't know if she still remembers that statement, but I think I've been vindicated after that. So yeah, that's why you find me playing around here. And believe you me, it's a big issue. Legal matters and technology is a big issue. There's a lot of convergence there, cybersecurity, data privacy, anti-money laundering, artificial intelligence, blockchain. And in the US here, you even get more eye-opening interactions because policymakers are opening up, academia is opening up. You get to get first sneak peeks into things that are happening. Speak to industry players, get to make an input. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot that is happening, and I'm happy I took this path. I have no regrets.
Definitely, you have no regret because I love the enthusiasm with which you approach what you do, and that's a plus for you because there's some kind of passion that is behind what you're doing, and it's admirable. It's admirable, right?
That's
so,
true.
what of somebody who is not or has not been through the steps you've been through? I mean, you went through website building, you went to networking and stuff, and the person wants to go into cybersecurity. Is it that cybersecurity is solely for people who have been in the field and it's actually a technical area? So if you don't have any technical background, there's no space or there's no place to accommodate you in cybersecurity.
Absolutely not. For starters, every industry that starts has difficulty with barriers of entry because people are not too clear where to start from and where to go and what to do. But fortunately, because cybersecurity is also a global thing, you can easily pick the learnings from across the world. When I decided to go to the side of law with technology, Ghana is not pitching that much. I could easily have said that, okay, let me focus on land law. This is not a big deal. Land law is fetching money in Ghana, so let me just focus on that. But I was not looking at Ghana for my inspiration. I was looking at what other jurisdictions were doing because it was maturing in other areas whilst we were just beginning, or probably we were just still thinking about what to do with it. So the advice is that you need to first of all find out the role you want to play with this. I mean, and I'm speaking about the role from a career point of view. First of all, cybersecurity has a technical component. Okay.
Right.
For people who are technically inclined, he's a network guy, he's a systems guy. He wants to go into application security, network security, system security. He wants to probably do some ethical hacking. He wants to go into cryptography. These are the technical part of cybersecurity. There is the governance aspect of it, which deals with people who are developing policies and guidance and frameworks, and helping shaping, from a conceptual point, decision making, input to cybersecurity. That's another component. So depending on who you are, your background, how well you've built a certain skill, you can also maybe move into governance. Then you can go into the assessments in terms of the audits. Okay, so you can go into security audits, and there are various certifications and skill building programs that can help you achieve that. There are people who are purely into training. There are people who are into advocacy and awareness. And like I said, don't look at the local market, I mean the domestic market of wherever you are, unless of course your market has developed. But if you are looking at the African market, you would easily want to believe that, oh, okay, I need to know everything to be relevant. You don't need to know everything to be relevant. I've told people point and point that I've been an ethical hacker for about 10 years. Okay. And when I was moving on, I'm not leaving ethical hacking behind, but there are things to be done that ethical hackers cannot do unless they decide to move into other aspects of cybersecurity.
Right.
So you need to know where you belong and where you want to enter into, because even with the skill of ethical hacking, there's question of whether you want to be on the offensive side, where you are always the attacker and finding out the problems, or you want to be on the defensive side, which nowadays they call it blue teaming, where you are going to help implement security solutions to prevent or to mitigate the impact of the attacks.
Wow.
And then there is you, who will build knowledge and then get people like myself onto their platform to have a conversation. Here there's a lot of thought leadership in the US here for cybersecurity. A lot of them. It's like an in thing. If you follow the Billington Cybersecurity is one of the biggest cybersecurity thought leadership project or company in the US. That moves around and bring policy makers together to discuss cybersecurity. And the people that make up Billington are media guys, cyber guys, industry players, regulators, and all that. So you see, the niche that they play is to push advocacy and to bring to you the new things that are happening either with the federal government or with the various states, or between the federal government and maybe big tech giant companies here, or the NSA and other private players. So that is another company. So you just need to, I think the whole gamut of cybersecurity affects every corner of our lives, from health to education. So you just need to find out where you belong. The traditional definition we've given it is a bit problematic. So somebody wants to go into cybersecurity, he wants to talk to me for mentorship, and his mindset is, can you teach me ethical hacking? And I'm like, okay, what exactly do you want to do? We need to know what you want out of this, because I could teach you ethical hacking and it means nothing to you, your future.
Right.
If it's just for the fun of it, YouTube is there. But if you want somebody to mentor you, you could actually build a direct, inspiration as to what you want out of it. So in a nutshell, I'm just saying that it is not necessarily technical. There's a technical component of it, but it's a whole value chain of activities, that brings it together. A lot of things come together to give that definition cyber security.
Well, a lot of things come together to give that definition. So we can gladly say cybersecurity is like the wheels on which all industries are moving. So there are other parts to it. You cannot just say, I am only the wheel. There is a door, there is a wiper, there is other stuff. So, hey, find where you can make that wheel move or that industry move, and then play your part. And let's kick it. Thank you so much, Desmond. I told you that, you're going to love this whole section. And we've started already. We've not yet moved into our topic for today, but it bothers around this one. So if you're joining us, kindly share the page. Let's hear you. Get into the chat area and let's have some vibe. And get your questions ready for Mr. Desmond Israel. Right, so, in recent times, we hear about data breaches, we hear about hacking, we hear about companies, coming down, and a lot of stuff happening in the system. Global data privacy. What is this whole data privacy about, and how is it relevant to us in this current dispensation?
Okay, so data privacy, in a nutshell, is just the assurance that we try to give to people's data when it's being used by others. I'm trying to get a definition that would make it a bit more relatable. If you're looking at what the legal regime or the industry regime is, then it essentially says that information about a person that can be used to identify the person, or attributes of the person that can be used to identify the person, or a combination of attributes or information that can be used to identify that person forms personal data. For that purpose, you need to render data privacy about the person, because there are two schools of thought. One is saying that privacy is, a human rights. Ghana takes that position because our Data Protection Act received its inspiration from our constitution. Now, when you move into other areas, the GDPR, you see a bit of the human rights there, a bit of consumer protection there. If you move into China, you see a lot more of a national, security focus. In recent days, when China came up with its PIPL, which is the protection of personal information, or personal information protection law, you could also see the consumer protection components in the US. Is highly consumer protection focused, because it always looks at what you're trying to do with the data of individuals. Okay, so data privacy is actually these rights and obligations that we put together, all right, so that people who hold data of others, the technical differences are the ones whose data you are holding is the data subject, and then the one who's holding the data is either the data controller, or in other jurisdictions they define it as a data holder. Okay, so this is basically the when you say data privacy, that's what you looked at. Now, I gave you this definition for the benefit of our listeners. Of course, that's why we are here, because it is very easy for you to miss the point what data privacy is. A lot of people tend to think that when you speak of data privacy, then all the inputs that you make for cybersecurity. No, at all. It has nothing to do with it. In fact, cybersecurity is a tool, okay, or the activities which you put in there to ensure the data privacy. One of the tools, because data privacy itself is a matter of law. What did the law say are your rights under data privacy? So if a company, for instance, is taking my information, can I go to the company and ask for that information? Can I go to the company and say that I want to know what you're doing with my information? Do I have the right to be told why my information or my data is being collected? For instance, I'm entering into a conference, and then all of a sudden somebody comes to me with a tablet and says, can I get your name and details and phone number? What for? Okay, because at that point it's collecting information about me. So now it tells you that, oh, you registered to be part of the conference and we are trying to take details from participants. Nothing short of your name and maybe your email address. This scenario that I gave you establishes what they call the express consent in data privacy. And
Okay.
this is what the world is looking at. The world is looking at the fact that everybody's data deserves to be protected. And therefore, there's the assurance of your rights, and then obligations on those who want to hold your data and work with it. So it's the balance of these rights and the obligations on the people holding your data that makes up this whole conversation about data privacy. And from your, topic, global data privacy is just what your topic says. Data privacy from an international perspective. So you're not just talking about maybe Ghana or talking about Sierra Leone. You're talking about data privacy from continent point of view. What is the Europeans looking at in terms of GDPR? What is the United States looking at? What are some of the contexts when it comes to Africa? What is China doing when it comes to data privacy? A lot of people have heard that China has no respect for data privacy and all that. So I like the topic, which is global data privacy, how we put everybody together when we are discussing privacy. And of course, it's really, really evolving. There's a lot of things that were not happening before, which is happening today, and that tells you that the conversation about data privacy is well received. I heard a statement about maybe 2-3 years ago in a conversation at a conference, and then one technical guy said that, why are you guys wasting your time? Privacy is dead. And then I said that, well, I don't think I want to argue with you over that, but in my thought process, the availability of data should be separated from data privacy. The fact that you said I've given my data to Facebook already does not mean privacy is dead.
Oh, okay.
The fact that you say that if I Google Desmond Israel, I'm going to get as much as you. So what's the fuss about your privacy? Does not mean privacy is dead. Data availability is even the more reason why we should have privacy. Have you considered why people want to be anonymous?
Okay.
I mean, it's food for thought. It was a rhetoric. I wasn't really expecting an answer.
There wasn't going to be
anonymity.
an answer, actually.
You want anonymity. You wouldn't want your bankers to tell me how much you have in your account without your consent.
Right.
Even our good friend Mark Zuckerberg could not tell Congress where he slept the night before he came to Congress to answer the questions. Privacy is inherent in the things we do. The fact that data is available does not mean that privacy is dead. And like I said, the tools of data privacy are actually supposed to ensure productivity rather than policing it, So this is data privacy in a nutshell.
This is data privacy in a nutshell. This nut is big. I'm telling you, this nut that you put data privacy in is big. So right. So that privacy part you're talking about, yeah. So I walk into a conference, and it's mandatory that I need to give this information. And you see, some go even beyond. What's the law saying about the kind of information that needs to be picked about an individual for such events or for such programs where the person going for that event has that right to say, I wouldn't give you this kind of information, or this is not necessary for you? Is there any part of the law that stipulates that, so I mean the individual can stand on that and then make that demands?
Yeah, very good question. So the global point, there is consensus that the primary grounds for which you collect any information, any data about a person, is consent. That's the primary ground. There are other grounds, secondary grounds, of which you can do that, like when there's a legitimate interest, when there's a contractual obligation, when a statutory requirement comes to play. So, for instance, the taxman does not will not need tacit consent from you to get information about you to process taxes, because the law allows that person to do that. So statutorily, the taxman would need your information, your data, to process you for the purposes of taxes. The police will not need permission to, tacit consent from you to collect information about you, because they would be exempted for the purposes of maybe prosecution or national security or anything like that. Okay, so I want the global picture to be clearer whilst I'm answering these questions. So generally, there is the acceptance of the fact that the primary reason for collecting information, or the primary grounds, for collecting information about persons, should be consent. Okay, check the provision in the Chinese PIPL, which came into effect, I think, sometime November 2021. The Brazilian data protection law, which similar looks like the GDPR. The GDPR itself, which came out in May 2018, sometime, I think 25th April 2018. Our own law back in Ghana, okay, speaks about consent. Look at the CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act. Look at other provisions of acts within the United States in recent times, and even the U.S. own federal government currently discussing the American Data Privacy and Protection Act in Congress. These are all laws or regulations. When you look at them, they speak about consent as the primary ground for which you can collect information, and then the secondary grounds which I have mentioned. Moving away from that, the principles of data protection, and for us who are playing within the European circle, the principles are similar. They are similar, but not the same, because it depends on where you are looking at it from. But there are principles in data protection that requires what they call minimality. Use minimal data, as much minimal data as you can. You cannot proceed to collect all the information and say that, oh, we'll need everything later. So even though it's a conference, we'll take their biometrics, we'll take their email address, we'll take their phone numbers, we'll take their health status. No, you can't do that. It's against the principle of data privacy that you collect almost any and everything because you will need it later. No, it must be specific to the purpose of collection. It must be as minimal as it can. So a conference that says that, and if you watch most of the international conference, they've desist from collecting any and everything about you to nowadays just taking your email address and your phone number and probably your professional status for the purposes of conferences. These are evolving practices. It never used to be the case, right? Back then, you could be filling the whole questionnaire just because you are attending a conference.
Where you stay, your date of birth, and the rest.
Yeah, exactly, and a whole lot of things, and now you can see that you are seeing a much different approach, and it's not happening out of the blue. It's part of the evolution of global data privacy. That some of these things from a global point of view has been seen to be very good practices, and therefore various regulations are adopting them and insisting that data handlers and data controllers also use the same approach. So a conference can only collect from you so much that is actually relevant for the purpose of collection. So if it's just for my attendance, obviously, how much of me do you need for my attendance? My name, so that I can be identified. My email address, so that I can be contacted, maybe concerning conference communication, and probably my workplace or my profession, so that conference content can be tailored for me, like breakaway sessions and things like that. So if you move the same analogy to other areas, your insurer will need more from you than just your name and your email address.
Right.
Yes. Right. If it's for your car, probably a little more, but it will not include your health status. But your insurer who is paying for your health will need to know what kind of health conditions you have, so that they can take the appropriate premium to be able to, pay for your hospital bills. So playing within that conduit, it just tells everybody that the principle of minimality is pretty much simple. Minimal. Take as much as you need for the specific purpose and nothing more.
Right. Take the specific information you need and nothing more. Okay, so one also asks, you made mention of protection. So what is data protection and data privacy then? Is it the same thing, or there is some kind of variation in there?
Okay, so the conversation around the variation is a very recent thing. Okay, it used to be the case that data privacy was entirely a US term, meaning the same thing as data protection, which was more like an European term, and which most of us with the European or the UK inclination all took after data protection, and then those with the US inclination took after data privacy. So it was data privacy, data protection, depending on the jurisdiction where you belong. But there are a lot of literature and even recent research and writings that we are engaged in, even with artificial intelligence, tries to merge the two but define them separately. Okay. So the contributions from industry and academia is saying that data privacy includes the rights and the obligations that comes with holding the data about a data subject. And data protection is actually the steps you take to protect that data, which includes data security, information security, and any other administrative and technical security controls that you may put in place protecting that particular, personal data is deemed to be a data protection activity. Okay, so now, if like in the US, for instance, and I'm making a reference because most of my research would be based on the things that I'm seeing here. The federal government's Privacy Act is called the American Data Privacy and Protection Act. If you look at the Chinese, it says protection of personal information protection law, PIPL, personal information protection law, right? So the personal information is dealing with the data, the personal data, which would include the rights and obligations. And then the protection is dealing with the explanation I gave on data protection.
Right.
Yeah. And there are a number of them. There's a similar context with Brazil, which also has their law passed 2 years ago, but then came into effect just about a year ago. So that's the current context in which you use data privacy and data protection. But I would admit that this is just a recent thing because my experience with data privacy is in my 6th year, because my first brush with this was in the later part of 2015, and at the time, for all the conversations that I managed to hear and all the conferences I either spoke or was a moderator or participated in, data privacy was purely used to identify the context of the American system of privacy, and then data protection was more for the European UK kind of approach, right? And that was the beginning. But today that conversation has changed, and it's changed drastically. And of course, it's part of the evolving landscape that the data privacy and protection is now put together to make a complete statement.
Right, so now it's coming to the forefront. He used to be behind, but now I think it's actually
it's out there.
Right. What of the person actually putting their information out there and then other people feasting on this information and then using them? Is there any regulation or is there any laws that can be used against them? Like, say he goes online and pushes too much information about themselves, and then another party picks those information and then they're using it. Can this giver go back and say, okay, per the regulations and per the laws, you've gone beyond what the law stipulates? Do we have something like that?
Okay, so technically, the approach that is currently being used is web scraping. So, and actually, there's about 2 decisions in the US here concerning web scraping. The US courts do not believe that privacy was infringed with web scraping, and so well, that's just on the side. But to answer your question, I think it would be more of the impact and not the collection. Okay, because the data protection or the data privacy and the involvement of data processing is a number of things: the collection of the information, dissemination of it, manipulation of it, modification of it, deletion, distraction. Okay, all these terms that I'm mentioning makes up data protection or data privacy, data protection, right? So the collection, where consent comes from. Can you sue somebody for when you have given out the information that is publicly available, information about you that is publicly available? If I get it, can you sue me on the grounds that the information was collected without your consent? I mean, technically, I know if I want to be a lawyer, I would say it depends. But technically, information that you put out there is public information.
Okay.
The problem is when you give the information to certain websites for certain purposes. So I put information on my Facebook post. I gave information to LinkedIn. I gave information on my Twitter. I gave information on maybe a job search portal. And then somebody writes a script which goes around looking for people looking for maybe national security data, national security, cyber security job positions across the world. Then he goes on CB sites, he goes on social media sites, picks information about all of us, aggregates it, and makes sense out of it. That approach is what we call the web scraping, where you go around the internet, picking various, bits and pieces of information across the internet, and then you put it together and then analyze and make some sense out of it. So my personal opinion, both as a practitioner and a current student on the subject, is that when web scraping is involved, I don't think the argument should be about the collection of the data, because first of all, the data was publicly available. The argument should be about the impact of that data on the data subject after it's been analyzed.
Okay.
So that because it's the protection of rights. That's why I started from there. It's a protection of rights. Data privacy is a protection of rights, and the obligation on the person who is holding the data to ensure that protection of the rights. That's why you have the right to sue when any of those things have been breached. So if I finally find out that these website or these portal or these service provider hold information about me because he picked it up web scraping, but is being able to analyze them about me, I have the right to ask that the data controller under what we call the subject access rights. I have the right to ask the data controller, what information do you hold about me? And how much of it do you hold about me? And that controller holds me an obligation to tell me how much they hold about me and why and for what purpose. And failure to do that for me would develop into a cause of action legally. So it's not about, oh, he collected my information wrongly. The information was publicly available, but now he holds information about you and you are the data subject. So under the subject access rights, I should be able to come to you and ask, okay, how much information do you hold about me? I should even be able to come to you and say, I've seen the information you showed about me. It is wrong, and I want you to take it down.
Right.
Exactly. So if you understand the value chain of data collection, manipulation, modification, alteration, storage, distraction, deletion, if you understand that value chain, because data privacy is not a mumbling of words, it's active, a series of sensible activities that comes together. So you should be able to decipher at what part of the chain is the breach happening, so that you can take the person on. Like I said, in the US, companies who've tried to use one of the regulations here, the cyber fraud regulations here, to prevent people from doing web scraping, were not successful in court, because the court's position was very clear that web scraping, the technology is only collecting information out of the public. It's not infringing on anybody's rights, not yours as well. But when that information is collected, and data subjects have been denied the right to, see that information and exercise their rights over that data that's been being held about them, I belong to the school of thought that a cause of action can arise from there. And that is why privacy is not dead. It is not the fact that the information is available.
Even though you put it there.
No, but privacy goes beyond the fact that the information is available. Privacy also includes what can I do to protect the information that I have made available.
Okay.
Do I have the right to update? Do I have the right to modify? If you look at privacy only from the hacker's point of view, and I think I hold this view because I've been there. I mean, I've done some pretty much good work when it comes to ethical hacking, so I can speak about the subject and speak about it comfortably. Right. And if you look at it from that offensive point of view, you're always going to come to the conclusion that privacy is dead. Oh, but Facebook was hacked. Oh, but Twitter was hacked. Oh, but Equinox was hacked. Everybody is going to get hacked one way or the other. The availability of data does not mean global data privacy is dead. It's not. It's actually the more reason why we should know what our rights are so we can exercise them.
Just know what your rights are so they can exercise them. I think Desmond we need a whole section. We need a whole session on it because let me just take a bit from our viewers online and let's hear what he's saying. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are joining us, don't worry yourself. Just continue joining us here and make sure you are keeping your privacy. When we are done, you go and start the protection from the beginning of the whole session, and then you enjoy the whole session until this time. Right, I have Bama. Bama said he's connecting all the way from Tamale. And I have Selassie Jukunus. She says, interesting conversation. Wow. We are enjoying it here. So, Goswell Kubi says, Godfather on show. Well, I'll come back to this question, but Nuruddin Adam said, Uncle, we are here, la. Greetings from. Okay, it's a coded language. I mean, let's keep that privacy there. AH233, Accra, or Ghana, whatever it means. Kubi Gosway says, interesting conversation. And then Selassie comes in again and says, great insight, Desmond. And then ERFO says, everyone will indeed get hacked one way or the other. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get hacked one way or the other. That's beautiful. Now, I have a question here, and I want to bring it. I think it ties in with the earlier question I asked in a way. Okay, so this is it says Eddie Frames. She says, I've received several SMS into bracket A2P services that I never subscribed to on my mobile line. Some of them I'm able to unsubscribe to them. Others are such that you cannot even reply to the sender. The question is, are these telcos not breaching a privacy law since they don't seek the subscribers' consent before allowing these third parties to send such SMS? And how can these telcos be put right? I think it's a bit of the first question and it ties into that one as well. How can they be put right? Or how do you get this whole scenario?
Okay. I get the sense this was a Ghana specific question, but I'll address it.
Exactly. So, it's a Ghana specific.
So I mean, globally, SMS marketing is frowned upon globally. Mass marketing using harvested data is frowned upon globally. But from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, they tried to manage the situation. For instance, you could have one jurisdiction that is saying that if you have ABCD in place, you could do that, and then there are jurisdictions which says that it's totally out of place. You cannot sell personal data for the purposes of marketing. Ghana falls into the box that says that this is a no-no. In Ghana, the selling of personal data is a crime in accordance to the Data Protection Act. It's a crime. Yeah, it's a crime which is actually punishable. Yes, if you can establish that your data has really been sold by the data controller to a third party for a purpose. In fact, once there is selling, there is a crime. Right. And also, if you can establish that data has been transferred to a third party which is not consistent with the original purpose of collection. Okay, I'll repeat that. There's a principle that is called the further compatibility with further processing. It's a principle in data protection. Now, when your data is given to a third party and is not compatible with the original purpose of collection, so for instance, bank A collects your information for the purposes of giving you banking services, and then you establish that the bank has given that information to an insurer to be selling you insurance messages, then sending you insurance messages. That is not compatible with the banking contract. Okay, so that will flout the law, and you can exercise your rights there. Specifically on the telcos, there is an NCA guideline for mass SMS. Telcos, they will speak for themselves, but generally, telcos are not supposed to sell data to third parties. With my experience,
data. Which kind of data are we talking about here?
Your personal information. your personal information. I mean, because generally no data controller can do third-party selling of your data in Ghana. In Ghana,
Okay.
our law is very clear. I mean, it's a section you can open and read, and it's black and white. It says data selling is not allowed. So I don't know what justification you would give me, even if you are the biggest of the industry players. I don't know what justification you're going to give me for breaching a law. Like,
Wow.
no, it's not allowed. In Ghana, you cannot sell data. Now, but that doesn't mean telcos are selling data. Okay. Because third parties can also get this information from various ways.
Right.
I just discussed web scrapping right now.
Right.
Now, if your data, the SMS you're getting is coming from the telco, remember, consent is the primary grounds, but there are secondary grounds.
Okay.
Legitimate interest, contract, statutory obligation. So if I have given my information to telco 1, for instance, telco 1 is giving me services, and then telco 1 sends me SMS about new services that are coming. It is not far away from the requirements which says that compatibility with further processing.
Okay.
They have earned, that right and that contract to be able to send me those messages. Now, the third parties, which are the 3TPs, like she said, the third, or the VAS, the value-added service companies that sends some of these SMS, you can actually take them on directly if, you've not given your information out to those service providers. You can take them on directly, because sometimes you can see the sender ID even though you can't reply. You can see the sender ID saying company XXXX, and then you see some promotions that are being pushed to you. You could also see the name of the promotion, and you can find the product is matched to a certain company or a certain entity, and you can take them on. So the question is, how do you take them on? Now that I've discussed the requirements, both from the selling point and the mass marketing point of view, how do you take them on? Your first point of call is the Data Protection Commission. They are your regulators. They have the power under law to investigate this, and investigating it also means they have to be balanced. They need to make sure that there is evidence to point to the fact that such a thing has happened and the person who you are alleging did it actually did it. And they have rights under law to also impose sanctions and fines on these entities. So the Data Protection Commission is your first point of call. But if you don't mind being litigious like me, and you wouldn't mind walking to the courtroom and paying some money and fighting your case, then the High Court and a very good lawyer would also do justice to that. But everything is dependent on the evidence on the ground, whether you can really establish that these people collected your information and they've used it for such and such purpose. The connection between telcos and the VAS and the 3TPs, please, is a very slippery slope. The fact that a VAS sends you a message through your MTN line does not mean MTN sent it to you. Absolutely not. And I just used it as an example, because I know this platform is not a product dependent platform. So my previous example was merely an example. Okay. Yeah. That's why I try to desist from using any telco names in the first place. Okay. So once you're on a particular telco platform and you receive a message from a VAS, which is a value added service, trying to promote other products to you, does not mean that telco 1, telco 2, telco 3 were the ones sending the message to you. Absolutely not. And if telco 1, 2, 3 were the ones sending messages to you, please be sure that those messages are in connection with the services that they are giving you, because they would have earned the right to send you that message, and they still owe you an obligation to protect that information and also follow all the principles of data privacy. But like I said, any concern you have, there's a regulator. Walk there. You have every right to walk to the Data Protection Commission, make a complaint, and they will hear you. I think they also have some portals or forms online where you can go there and make the complaint. So probably your network can check those things out and maybe share it on your on your Facebook and social media as a follow-up to this conversation.
Right. Most definitely, it's going to be done because, hey, it's getting interesting here and I'm loving the response and comments that are coming. So the one who sent the question said, thanks for the response. I think you just hit it right there for the person. Right. Another question in here for you. And it says, how do we protect the data of our clients when we use all these bulk SMS services providers? How do they protect the data of their clients?
Okay. It's a pretty straightforward answer, but in practice, and especially with the Ghanaian ecosystem, I'm a bit guided because you need to do a few more things to achieve that. So one, there's no provision under the law that goes after the data processor.
Okay.
The law deals with the data controller. So if company A has his employees and his clients and holds their information, the law is coming after company A. So company A, which gives the data to sub company A, which is an SMS company, and says, okay, I need to use your SMS services, so I'm uploading the data onto your platform. The obligation is still on the data controller. So the advice I've given in the past is you need to have like a data use, data transfer agreement with these third parties, so that when there is a breach and the law is coming for you, you can also pass on some of your liabilities to them. Because under the contract, you will spell out the security requirements and the data protection obligations that you are enjoined to implement. And therefore, because they are data processors, you're passing it on to them. Now, those platform owners as well must also comply with data protection provisions, because as I said this, because there's what we call the data controller relationship, data controller data processor relationship, and the data processor data controller relationship. In some context, a mass SMS platform becomes a data controller.
Okay.
Because when you move data to them, they begin to hold the data and decide how the data is going to be used, whilst you also hold your own data on your side of the account, which you also decide as and when messages are sent to. So they are supposed to put in the security measures that will protect the data you have uploaded onto their platform. They are supposed to ensure data access rights when it matters. They are supposed to ensure that the information that is put on the platform is not used, beyond the purpose for which it was put in there. They are supposed to have their own data protection, data privacy policies. They are supposed to be registered with the Data Protection Commission for the purposes of meeting the requirements under the law, and also implement all the best practices when it comes to data privacy. So you see, they might be sitting in their corner thinking that, oh, we are just data processors. But if you understand how this works, and like I said, data privacy, data protection is not a mumbling of words. It's a series of activities that make sense, and they come together for you to achieve that purpose. So you can follow the flow and be able to say that, no, this didn't work out at this point in time along the chain, and fix it. And rather than seeing it as a policing tool which is preventing your innovation, you could treat data privacy as a competitive edge. I would go to a service provider who says that he takes my data seriously and ensures security, as against going to a service provider who doesn't give a coin about it. Yeah.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, when it's getting cool in here, and then time is still in our privacy. Oh, what kind of information that we've been downloading since we started this episode. It's been a wonderful, evening, depending on where you're watching us from. Let us not go into your privacy. It's evening here in Ghana, so I know. But yeah, let me see if I have any question in here for you. they did. I think okay. The one who sent it says, "Okay, thanks for this in-depth answer. I have been enlightened." Yes, you have been. You can get it wrong when it's Desmond. So just be ready for that. And then
Thank
say,
you.
okay, thank you, Bob Baden, watching with the family inside Ghana. So and someone is calling somebody, I think, who has been infringing on their rights. They should come and listen to this this nugget that is being said here. So Daniel Su Aponsa, wherever you are being called to come and listen. This is thank you so much. Thank you so
That's a
much.
funny one.
They're calling them to come and listen. Yeah. So what we do normally here is that we give our hashtag for the episode. And it's about time for us to drop our hashtag for today's episode. But before we do that, we're taking our last commercial break, and then we're going to give the opportunity to Desmond to give us his last words and the advice he needs to give us concerning data protection or data privacy. So stick around, don't go. We'll be back shortly.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.accessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AccessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Thank you so much for sticking around with us for today's episode, and it has been a wonderful episode. You can bear witness with all that has been shared here, and I think Desmond will definitely come back again. I promise you, because he's just scratched the surface of this whole stuff, and I'm loving the comments that are coming. I'm loving the questions and how people are, responding to it. It's all over. Deep and insightful, right on point, super. I'm just loving it. In-depth answers. And yes, means this is a serious matter that needs to be addressed or needs to be looked at. Yet so, as we do it always, let me hear our last words from Desmond. Then maybe we can also get another hashtag for the day from those submissions that he's going to give us. So Desmond, we want to take your last words concerning this topic for today. Data or global data privacy.
So yes, data privacy is now a big global issue across the world. There's also conversation about how our biometric is being collected and being used. There's a conversation about the metaverse and the privacy concerns that comes with the metaverse. There's a lot of conversation about how we're going to merge, data protection regulations and cybersecurity regulations to achieve, a similar purpose. For individuals like us, privacy begins with you. Data protection begins with you. Apart from whatever regulators would say, your privacy, your data privacy, your cybersecurity is in your hands. So adopt some of the cyber hygiene's best practices, be a bit more circumspect how much information about you are sharing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't share the information about you. Like I said, someone said, when I Google you, I get everything I need to know about you. So what's the big deal? Yeah, the availability of information should not stop you from practicing data privacy, not at all. And data availability is why the world is where it is today. That is what you've codified to call, and data is a new oil. It's because it's available. You can have it. You can work with it. You can analyze it. And why don't you want controls on it? Okay. Why don't you want controls on it? And why would you also not want to put controls on how much of you is out there or how it is used? Why don't you want to exercise that right to it? I'll just end on this note and say that even in the context of celebrating the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, at the core of it is data, different kinds of data, national data, corporate data, intellectual property, and then your personal data. As an individual, you are more interested about your personal data, and that's where it starts with you.
Right, that's why it starts with you. Thank you so much, Desmond Israel. But before we go, I think if we could just take this last one and then maybe address it. As an entrepreneur who runs an e-commerce business, do I need to register with Data Protection Commission of Ghana?
Every business, every entity that collects and processes data would have to register with the Data Protection Commission of Ghana. It's a matter of law. It's the same when you enter other jurisdictions. The only difference is the bigger your company or the broader the base of your operation or the amount of data or data sets that you are holding will determine the kind of obligations the regulator will put on you at the time of registration. But the purpose to register is for the country to have its national register of data controllers and data processors, so that when there is an issue like breach notification incidents, trying to clean up the ecosystem and all that, you can be identified as well. Like I said, rather than looking at it, and I'm not saying this question is coming from somebody who is doing, I'm just making a general statement that rather than looking at it as a policing mechanism, look at it as a competitive edge. Sell your business to people, telling them that, in fact, you can even have a thumbnail on your e-commerce website which shows that you are registered with the Data Protection Commission. It gives one customer the confidence to use your platform than the other guy. Global data privacy is moving fast, and you need to show. Maybe one day an international company will want to buy you or invest in you. They are complying with serious regulations, more stringent regulations wherever they are. They will be more pleased to merge, buy, invest in another business that is respecting the privacy or applying the privacy laws of others. This is what, security guys never thought would happen today. Almost everybody is now going into ISO 21001 standards. Why? Because they want to make sure that they are on the same plane or the same playing field with international companies so that they can compete. So look at it as a competitive edge rather than looking at it as a policing mechanism, because it is not.
Right. Thank you so much. So let's about time to drop in our hashtag for today. Let's drop the hashtag for today. So there it goes. Ta-da! Pa, 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 pa. Principle of minimality. That is our hashtag for today.
Wow.
Our hashtag for today.
And that's a good one.
Yeah, principle of minimality, because it cuts across his nuggets that he shared with us. So on behalf of the team from African Citizen Speakers Network, we want to say a very big thank you to you, Desmond Israel, who never gets it wrong when he comes onto the platform or when he's around. He gives it to you with passion and with the knowledge that comes with it. And our viewers will just bear good witness to all that you've shared with us. We are so blessed, and thank you for coming through. And we know this is just the part one of your coming. Because the questions are going to flow. The questions are going to keep coming. And then we will just need to have another section with you. So we want to say thank you very much for coming. And thank you, all our viewers. We want to say thank you for joining us from wherever you joined us from. And we are saying we are so glad and we appreciate every minute of your time spent with us on the Power Impact series. And we are influencing the next generation of Africans. So as I keep on saying, dreams are in levels. Make sure you get to the top level of your dream. And remember, the month of October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we'll be coming with you with a lot of nuggets from that side too. Data privacy. It's a thing that we all need to bear good minds to and not think it is a kind of system that is trying to die or is dead or whatever. It is around. So keep it in mind and make good use of it. And let us all move it up to the next one. So thank you so much for joining. See you same time next week, same time, same place, same platform. We want to say a very good evening to you, good morning, good afternoon to you, wherever you join us from. Bye-bye.